folks. Today we're going to talk about mostly Crisis. I don't think there's really any spoilers because we're just going to be talking about setting, but it will be just about Crisis. However, this one's going to be a little personal, and if you have a hard time with mental health stuff now or like chronically, um, and you need to protect yourself, I get it. You don't have to listen to this one. It's not important. We're going to talk about the asylum today, from Crisis, and about me a little bit. Um, so, go ahead and click off if that's not available to you right now. And I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so the asylum. I guess we'll start with like a little bit of my history. Um, I think I think a lot of people know that I live up in Maine. I grew up in Maine and I came back to Maine. Um, that's in the United States, by the way, for any international readers up in the northeast corner of the states. Um, so up here in Maine, we had the Maine Insane Hospital, which later became Augusta Maine Health Institute, which everybody used to call AMHI. Um, so when I was in junior high and high school, they were still sending people, like keeping people at AMHI, and it used to be uh, in today's society for kids that are having trouble adjusting, we have like the troubled teen industry, which has its own problems. But um, for a while, the threat was if you were misbehaving, the threat was you would go to military school, and then it was to like one of these rehab camps, and then it was to, a halfway house. When I was a kid, it was AMHI for my region. That was the thing. And I had a friend in high school and junior high. Actually, I was friends with her from kindergarten, but in junior high and high school, she started doing what all kids do and teasing that I would go to AMHI. Um, Not for anything serious. I was not a troubled kid at all. I have and have had mental health problems, but I was not a behavior problem or a learning problem or anything like that. This was purely just a tease, which is problematic. I'm not justifying it at all. I'm just saying this is kind of what my childhood was. Um, and unbeknownst to her, uh, I was already developing severe anxiety and depression at that point, and in fact, my parents started sending me to therapy for that in junior high. Also, unbeknownst to me, she also turned out to have some um, severe struggles as well, but I didn't know that until much, much, much later. Anyhow, I was terrified of AMHI and any mental health institution because in our media at that age, mental institutions were depicted as horrific places because, in all honesty, in America, some of them were and like any institution, there can be corrupt people, there can be people that take advantage of vulnerable people. You know, it happens, but not for the most part. And I want to say this in case you are, like me, also struggling with mental health. Mental health professionals are there to help you, and the good far outweighs the scary. Um, if you're struggling, talk to somebody. That's all you have to do. You don't have to agree to anything. You don't have to expose anything. You can just talk to somebody, and even doing that will help you, start to see how the process works if you need more of a process. Anyhow, um, when my parents started sending me to this therapist, I used to literally beg my mother, please don't lock me up, please don't lock me up, please don't lock me up. And of course, she never would. And she always said that, I would never put you away unless you were a danger to yourself or you were hurting somebody. But I didn't ever convince me that she wouldn't, or that somebody else wouldn't when I grew up. And I still, you know, that still haunts me. So when I got to crisis, because of the way that I pictured the plague happening, that it was so. Remember that the December plague was asymptomatic for several weeks before people started, losing it. Um, I thought that the hospitals would be completely overrun by the time, you know, um, the pandemic was at full swing, or that people would panic and burn the hospitals down and stuff. So when it got to the point of having to care for multiple infected people in a safe way, hospitals I just didn't think were an option. Not only that, a hospital in a large city like the one that Ruth and Juliana live in, which by the way we'll get to that kind of setting stuff in a couple days here. Um, when it came to large hospitals, not very many hospitals would have non-electric options. Like there would be generators, sure, there's generators for all hospitals, and there would be, you know, backups, but after 8 or 9 years, those backups would be completely gone. So I needed a place that not only had, safe rooms to keep people in, was large, and would have some kind of non electric operations. So, AmHi, the main asylum, um, it was designated as a historic site when I was in, I think, elementary school. They have, or had, I don't know if I assume they still do because it's still there, it still exists. They had buildings that were older, and that had things like non-electric pumps and, the older wood stoves. Actually, most of Maine, the backups still have, wood stoves backups. So that's not such a big deal. Anyhow, um, I thought that would make a good place. Plus, because I was already terrified of it, it would make a scary place, to keep all these infected safely. Um, so the exterior of the asylum is based expressly on AmHi. Obviously, the the left wing of or I guess that would be the east wing, I suppose, is not crumbling at AmHi. They keep it fairly nicely. It's no longer operational. It closed down in, I think, 2000 or somewhere around there, but it's still a historic landmark. Um, the inside is completely made up. I've never been inside of AmHi, um, obviously, and I don't think it would be in quite as bad of shape as the asylum in this story. I needed somewhere where you could isolate people so they wouldn't hurt themselves and you could take care of them. So that's where that comes from. Um, Another thing about Crisis and the Asylum, as some of my beta readers will know, Before the Cure was actually not originally titled that. It was because of Crisis, it was meant to be a mirror. So instead of an asylum, you had a hospital. But it was originally called Prodrome, which is the phase of a mental break that comes right before like an episode. And then crisis is the point, or crisis is the Greek pronunciation. Anyway, it is the point right before things either get better or completely fall apart in any illness, not just mental illness. So, anyway, that's a little tidbit about Before the Cure. Um, and obviously, the asylum worked out because we are talking about a form of, you know, not being rational, of not being in control. Um, these people are not in control of themselves, even when they wish to be. Their rage is controlling them. So having it in an asylum was also appropriate for that reason. I think that's probably it about the asylum. I guess I can talk about the setting in general here. I don't have to wait. So uh, I tried to make both the city, Nella's city, and the city that Juliana and Ruth live in, kind of generic because I wanted you to picture your own area, wherever in the world you were. But to be honest, I gave myself away a couple times. um, and we'll talk about that when we get to Melissa. But um, if you are curious, because I do have people ask this all the time, Nella's city is physically based on a very vague layout of Boston, like extremely vague, because I live fairly close and have been there multiple times. But I expressly did not place it geographically in Boston because I was worried about people being too connected to a place, so it would take them out. So I actually placed it geographically around Virginia, which is why they sail north to the capital, which would have been DC, and then um, Ruth and Juliana's city was meant to be like New York, probably, like something very, very large. Anyhow, um, the story could take place anywhere. I just wanted the feel of those cities when I was writing it. Obviously, Empty City is not going to feel like either of those places. And my environmental storytelling is more akin to northern New England, as you can probably tell. There's snow, there's worries about winter, obviously, there's wood stoves, things like that. So it is, I do give it away, but I did go to kind of probably ridiculous lengths to change how people saw the city. Like, I purposely asked beta readers to pick out any colloquialisms, like stuff that I've absorbed into my everyday speech that I don't even realize. For example, I think I ended up using rucked up to ruck up a leg or clothing or whatever means to like scuff it up, to scratch it up in like northern New England. But I didn't realize that was not a saying anywhere else that I found until after I had published. But after I figured that out, I started trying to take those things out so it'd be less localized. The new project, I expressly did not do that. So it might be a little jarring when you get there and you see some local things because it's not that I was lazy, I just felt it was time to anchor the setting a little bit more than I have in the past. And I think, except for 7081, which was in space, I haven't tried to do that since this series. I've tried to keep it, I don't know how you would say it, like, I try to keep it organic, I guess. So you can tell that I am from Maine. Probably more than I intend for you to. So anyhow, that's the setting for Crisis, and tomorrow we will start talking about Vincent, and I will see you tomorrow.